Hello everybody, I'm Nora Burrows, and recently I've gotten the itch to do some wool applique. Now I have zero experience in applique, almost zero. I've done a tiny bit, but we'll just say zero because it's pretty much what it is. And I've had pretty much zero interest in doing any kind of applique, much less wool, but for some reason I just feel like I have to do it right now. So I went to my local quilt shop. I asked if they had any wool. They had a little bit, so I got kind of a sprinkling of what they had, which I'll show you in just a minute. And I have plotted out my first quilt block, so because I want to make a big wool applique quilt. And my understanding is you can applique wool onto flannel, onto cotton, or onto wool. And so I am appliquing wool onto wool with a wool batting and perhaps a wool backing. So this will be like the craziest, like heaviest, ridiculous quilt. But it's gonna be also ridiculous because these quilt blocks, each one is gonna be wild, crazy. Some might have flowers, some might have vines, some might have animals. But I want it to just be like very confusing, but each block very like, what's going on there? And part of that is, I think that if it's just like a wild and crazy quilt, all of these like mistakes I make along the way and these animals that you can't tell what they are, I'll just be like, that's the way it's supposed to be. It's a wild and crazy wool applique quilt. So if you are looking for a tutorial on wool applique, you may want to find a video by a professional wool appliquer, but if you want to come with me and watch me stumble along this process and make all kinds of mistakes and probably do it wrong, then you're in the right place. So let's get started and make some crazy wool applique stuff. So first of all, here is the fabric that I got. They had these little bundles, and so I have 2 of each of these little squares, which is really helpful because I have a variety of colors to choose from, as you can see. I've already cut up a couple of these squares, so I also had these 2 green fabrics as well. And I'll show you what I cut up in a minute. Now, I got a little bit of yardage, like a 1/4 yard of each of this kind of gold fabric and this brown, which will be very versatile for like trunks, tree trunks and stuff like that. This is also kind of a gold, it's a herringbone. I love herringbone, so I didn't even realize that herringbone was a wool kind of thing, but my couch is kind of a herringbone pattern and I love like herringbone tiled floors and things like that. So when I saw that this is herringbone and then a bunch of these little pieces, like this black and white one is herringbone, as is this pink one, I was so excited about this. Then I also got this white fabric, which I guess, I don't know what I'm gonna use for this, but maybe some like eyes of animals or something like that. But this is all really soft. So here's my little scene that I put together. And what I want to do is, this is supposed to be some kind of animal that we don't know what it is. So the thing about folk art, and this is going to be a little folk arty, is 2 things. One, the animals you can never really tell what they are frequently. You're like, is that a moose? Is that a dog? Is that a deer? We don't know. Is that a bear? The other, which I like because then you don't have to worry about being so exact. Now, the other thing is that in folk art, none of the objects are to scale. So for example, this bird is like half the size, at least, of this animal here, right? And this house is like tiny compared to this dog. So I am gonna make this house bigger, but the point is that the nice thing about folk art is you don't have to worry about things being to scale. So let me tell you what I've done here. And this I have to still cut. This is supposed to be the little like, what is this? Like the little leash attached to the wheelbarrow. And the wheelbarrow is gonna be pulling these stars. So I also have to, this wheelbarrow is gonna have all these stars in it, and these stars are going to be made out of this beautiful golden material. And then the stars will kind of be like falling out of the wheelbarrow. So there'll be like a bunch of stars in there, and then a couple of them will be like falling out. So I think that would be really fun. So what I've done so far, let me move this stuff out of the way, is I cut out some grass. And these grass pieces came from these squares. And so as you can see, I wasn't able to make this go, you know, all the way down to the bottom because it wasn't wide enough. So I kind of had to just work with what I had there. But I have sewn these to this pink background fabric. I initially sewed it to this background fabric using this thread that I was given and told is applique thread, which it is, and it's very nice, good quality, expensive thread. And what I found is that if you are looking at applique, specifically wool applique, all of the applique is attached by blanket stitch. So I took my thread, I blanket stitched all the way along here, and I was like, that does not look good. So I decided, why can't I just do this my own way, right? Like, why do I need to be doing this the professional way? So what I decided to do was just use my regular sewing machine thread in my needle. Now, I should back up and tell you that to put the grass down, I used this, what's called Wonder Under. It's this stuff here, and I'll show you how to use it in a minute when I cut out that other house. But basically what you do is you cut out, you trace your piece onto the Wonder Under, cut it out, iron it onto the back, and then when you're ready, you can peel off this backing and stick it onto your fabric with heat. So all of these were already stuck on here. I stuck these on, and then I decided, then you need to sew it on for real stability. So I've already done this. It's already sewn on, as you can see, but I'll do it again just to show you what I did. So I came in the back, and then I went a little bit behind where I came up, and then up through the top. I think this might be called a back stitch, but that might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. Then I went a little bit behind where the thread came up, and again towards the front. It's kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and I just kept going like this all the way around. So in doing this, it's super secure on here, but eventually this top part will fray a tiny bit, which I think is kind of cool. I think that will only add to everything. So anyway, so that's how I'm securing everything down. Let's make the house next. I will show you how to do that with the Wonder Under. So the first thing I want to do is make my house a little bigger. So I'm going to put the current house down and then just trace a little bit more. So there's my house, it's a little bigger, and now I'm going to retrace my roof to also be a little bigger. I'm going to cut out those 2 pieces with my craft scissors, not with your fabric scissors. So here I have my new house and my new roof, and I think that I can use the same door and window as before. Yeah, I could make the window a little bigger. That's a huge window. This is cute. So I'm already failing at this wool applique video because I attached the Wonder Under to the house and roof, and the video camera was off the whole time, and I attached the door on there. So I will show you how to attach the Wonder Under with these stars. We'll do that together. But let me just finish up this part of the house. So the next thing, so the Wonder Under is attached to this window. I'll show you how to do that on the stars. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to peel off the back now. And the back is not sticky yet, but it will be sticky once I add heat. So I'm going to put the window where I want it, right about there, and then add my heat. And now it's nice and stuck on there. That's great. So we are going to sew the window on and the door on. But before we do that, let's do the stars so that you can see how to use the Wonder Under. Let's start with just 3 stars, and then we can add more later. We'll definitely want more stars, but let's just do 3 for now. I cut these out of the Wonder Under, just like you saw me do for the house. Now I'm going to place them on the mat with kind of the rough side facing up. The rough side is what's going to stick to my fabric. So I put them down, and then I'm going to put a little bit of my fabric on top, make sure they're nice and flat, and press. So now they're stuck to the fabric. I'm going to take my fabric scissors and cut them out. Here are my stars with the Wonder Under on the back. Let's now attach the window and door onto the front of the house. I'm going to go through the bottom. Oh. So I'm going to be going through the paper on the back because I haven't pulled that off yet. Maybe I should pull that off since it's not sticky yet. Let me do that. Let's pull off the back. Should I? Should I pull off the backing? Or should I sew through the backing and then pull it off? Comment and let me know what I'm supposed to do. I just pulled it off. I think some of the stickiness didn't adhere to the bottom here. I wonder why that happened. All right, maybe you can comment and tell me why that happened too. I have so much to learn from you all. I've been working on my house a little bit. I added this cross kind of in the middle of the window to make it look more window-ish. I used this thread to do that, and it actually didn't show up so well. And then I went around the edge with that same thread as well. And then I added a little doorknob. I just took a little scrap, put a tiny bit of fabric glue on the back of it, stuck it on, and then sewed over it. And as you can see, I added this beautiful vine. I'm ready to secure down some of my main pieces, which is the house and the tree. And so before I put the roof on, I'm going to put the roof aside, and I'm going to heat this down, because remember we have the fusible interfacing on the back, so that'll be sticky once we heat it. So I'll heat this down, and then I'll sew around the edge. And once I've sewn around the edge, then I can attach the roof. Same with the tree. So I'm going to put the leaves, the foliage aside, and I will iron down the trunk. I still have to break off this back piece here. So that's nice and sticky on the back. Well, it's not sticky yet, but it will be sticky when we heat it. So I will put it back on here. So I'm going to heat these two down, and then I'll sew them on. It occurred to me that you could, because you're not doing this blanket stitch, you could use your sewing machine. And some sewing machines, most have a blanket stitch on them. So if you wanted to do the blanket stitch, you could also do that on your sewing machine. But I'm not going to use my sewing machine. I'm going to hand stitch with just regular thread, similar to this thread, the sewing machine thread, only I'll do blue thread here and brown thread here. I've sewn down the house and the tree trunk. And what I just thought about is that it would be nice to maybe add some texture to the tree trunk. So what I did is I put some of my embroidery thread, and I did a second one with some tan embroidery thread. And I thought I would just kind of go up and down the trunk with these two colors and see how that looks. I think the bark on the trunk came out really well. I'm really happy with that. It looks very bark-like. Go figure. So next, we're going to want to put the roof onto the house and the leaves onto the tree. But before we do that, I want to add a chimney to the house because I think that'd be super cute. So let's see what fabrics we have to work with for the chimney. Not green. This was the color of the roof, so we won't do that. Not blue. This was the color of the house. We could do this black herringbone chimney. I think I like that. That'd be nice. Probably that. Let me just see if there's anything else in here. Could do a brown herringbone chimney, but I don't think it would show up as well. Let's do the black. One of these little green scraps happened to fall kind of onto this area here, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's so cute. It looks like some grass coming up next to the tree, some weeds. So I found two more. I found one here and here, and I think I may put these down and top stitch. But first, let's focus on the chimney. I'm just going to cut a rectangle out a little bigger than what I think I need. Needs to be a little thinner. What do we think about that? Maybe we could even do some smoke. We can embroider some smoke coming out of the chimney. That would be really cool, especially with some gray smoke against the pink. That would really pop. All right, so I'm gonna put some of the Wonder Under onto the chimney. So let's position it on here, how we want it to go, and then we'll heat the chimney first. What if I put it on a diagonal? Make it a little wonky. What do we think about that? Or does that just look like a mistake? The problem is the shape of the roof makes it hard for the chimney to kind of stick out. Put it on the other side. What if we cut the chimney a bit to make it better for the roof? Let's try it now. That's perfect. Excellent. I have peeled off my fusible adhesive off of both the chimney and the roof. And let's go ahead and secure the chimney first with heat. That's really nice and stuck on there. So let's now attach the roof in the same way. Now the roof is nice and stuck on there. So I'm going to sew with my sewing, I'm gonna hand sew with my sewing machine thread all around the roof and the chimney. The roof and the chimney are both sewn on, and so next I'm going to do the same exact thing with the leaves of the tree. So I'll take off the adhesive backing and then iron this on and top stitch around. I attached and sewed the tops of the trees, and then I also used the Wonder Under to attach these scrap pieces of fabric so that it kind of looks like grass underneath the tree. And I've attached this, what's supposed to look like grass down here. It doesn't look quite as grassy as I had hoped, but if you take a look, I just used kind of this random stitch just to make it look kind of more grass-like, and I even did it along the base of the tree, and I could keep going, like I could fill in this little spot and this little spot with grass and maybe a little bit down here, and I might do that later, but I might not. So I think this is good. What I want to do next is add some heart-shaped apples to my tree. I have what I think is a good way to do that, but I have not tried it. So let's see if this is in fact as good of a way as I think that it might be. So I have this little sticker here, and what I thought that I would do is take my fusible interfacing. Let me just cut off a piece of this interfacing here. So here's just a piece of the interfacing, and I'm going to peel the sticker off the backing. This is just like a random sticker you can get anywhere. And I'm going to place it on the fusible interfacing like this. And then I'm not even going to trace it. I'm just going to cut around the edge. Then I'm going to remove my sticker, place my heart aside, and I'm going to put the sticker onto the Wonder Under again and do the same thing. So because it's a sticker, I can just keep sticking it and peeling it off and sticking it and peeling it off and then cutting around the edge. So I'm thinking that this will be a really good way to get a bunch of hearts without having to trace them all. So let's start with 3 hearts. I have my 3 hearts of the Wonder Under here, and we're gonna have more than 3 hearts, but let's just start with 3 just to see how this goes. And I put my hearts with the kind of scratchy side facing up. I'll place my fabric on top and then iron. Now those are stuck on there really nicely, but I'm not going to cut them out yet. So for now, I'm just going to leave these attached, and I'm going to make more hearts and attach more hearts to my fabric. I'm going to start with 7 hearts, which I think should be enough. I'm going to cut these out. I even have my little scissors here if I need to kind of get in some of these corner spots of the hearts. And then we will place these on the tree and iron them to stick on. So now I will peel off the backs. So now I have all of my heart apples on the tree, and they're not sticky yet because I haven't added the heat, and I kind of want them to go in all different directions. So you want to place them exactly how you're going to want them to go, and now you heat them. So now we're going to attach the heart apples on with some embroidery floss. Again, one of my ends here has a knot in it. There is my first heart outlined with the embroidery floss, and I think that's looking mighty good. I'm very, very pleased with that, so I'm gonna do the rest of those. Our scene is coming along pretty nicely. Here is the tree with the heart apples, and these kind of just pop right off of the leaves behind them, so this is really one of my favorite parts so far. I've been thinking about it, and part of me wonders if just this would be a better quilt block, just to kind of have just the tree and then do something else with the house. I do have more space over on this side of my fabric where I could extend the grass this way. I would have to get more green because I'm out of this green, but I could probably piece something together and then do something kind of next to the house that way. So I'm gonna think about that, but I'm really pleased, especially with the tree, and the hearts I think are so sweet. So I would say success so far. So that's where I'm gonna stop this video for today. I'm thinking that I might have this be a little bit of a series of the wool on wool quilt block making series to make this ultimate wool on wool quilt. So that's what I'm thinking, that this will be a series. This is episode 1. In episode 2, we will finish this quilt block, or we will cut this quilt block and make 2 quilt blocks out of it, whatever we decide is going to be happening at that time, because like I mentioned, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do at this point, even though I'm feeling really optimistic about how this project is going. I'm really pleased with this first attempt at wool on wool applique. I didn't know if I was going to like it at all, but I do. I like it very much. So next episode, check it out. I will actually be posting a separate video, not in this series, a different quilt making crafty episode prior to that. So don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything, and I'll see you next time. Bye.